in a child's palm, the kind a mother tears open at 6 in the morning while a school uniform is still being ironed in the next room. In the Philippines, this object is not a product, it is a piece of furniture in the national kitchen. For 50 years, Milo has been the powder stirred into the milk of a country that grew up dreaming of becoming something: a runner, a swimmer, a fighter, a champion of any small Saturday tournament where the medals were plastic and the pride was real. And on the 22nd of February 2026, inside the Fashion Hall at SM Megamall, that tin found its face. Her name is Eala. She is 20 years old. She is, as of this week, the 35th ranked women's tennis player on Earth. And the brand that has been quietly building Filipino athletes since 1976 decided, in its 50th anniversary year, that the face of its next half-century would be hers. To understand why that decision lands the way it does, you have to understand what Milo actually is in Filipino life. It is not Gatorade. It is not Powerade. It is the National Milo Marathon, now in its 50th edition. It is the Milo Sports Clinics that have run in barangay gyms and provincial schools for decades. It is the alumni roll that includes Jamie Lim in karate, Chris Tew in basketball, Japoy Lizardo in taekwondo, and quietly on that same list, the name of a small girl from Manila who would one day beat the world number 2 on a grass court in Berlin. The February launch was not a soft photo opportunity. The vice president for marketing of Milo Philippines, Lawrence Lorico, stood at the podium and put his name on the bet. The My Milo Story campaign was unveiled. A television commercial was cut, and the face of the campaign, the face of the anniversary, was Eala. Here is where the story turns honest, because a coronation that doesn't acknowledge its critics is a press release, not a documentary. And so the question has to be asked, has the commercial story outrun the competitive one? Some have argued exactly that on Filipino fan forums, on Reddit threads in r/sportsph, on Facebook comment sections that scroll forever. A quieter voice has been pushing back against the noise. The voice points to the stack of endorsements. Globe Telecom since she was 8. Nike, reportedly elevated to a global ambassador framing earlier this year, though the specifics remain partially unconfirmed. Honor Philippines, Nestle Malaysia now in its 3rd year, and now Milo Philippines in its anniversary year. That is a brand portfolio more typical of a top 10 player than a player ranked 35th. The skeptics ask a fair question. Where are the trophies that match the contracts? Where is the slam? Where is the title that justifies the marketing budget? It is not a cruel question. It is the question every young athlete in the endorsement era eventually has to answer. And the answer, as it happens, has been arriving on grass courts in Germany this very week. But to see why that answer matters, we have to walk through the evidence the way a marketing team and a world number 1 independently walked through it before us. Because 2 completely separate sets of professionals, working in 2 completely different industries, looked at Eala in the past 12 months and arrived at the same conclusion the ranking number has not yet caught up to. Start with what is verifiable. The Milo unveiling on the 22nd of February at SM Megamall is not rumor. Lawrence Lorico is on the record in Insider PH and Marketech APAC reporting. The launch coincided with Milo Active Pilipinas 2026 and the 50th edition of the National Milo Marathon. A television commercial was produced pairing Eala with the pole vault world bronze medalist E.J. Obiena. That is the documented core, an executive on the record commercial commitment from a 50-year-old national institution, not a leak, not a tease. Now layer in what Milo actually is, because a brand that has been embedded in Filipino sport for half a century does not hand its anniversary face to anyone. The National Milo Marathon's opening leg on the 1st of March drew more than 28,000 runners. The brand has 50 events scheduled across 2026, 35 champ runs in partnership with the Department of Education, 15 marathon legs across the country. This is not a sponsorship. This is infrastructure. And inside that infrastructure, decades ago, was a small girl named Eala who attended Milo sports clinics before she was ranked, before she was famous, before Roland Garros knew her name. The brand's own alumni list places her among Jamie Lim, Chris Tew, Japoy Lizardo. The full circle is not a marketing metaphor. The full circle is documented. The kid who drank the powder grew up to be the face on the tin. Pause there for a moment. Because that detail, a child who attended the grassroots clinic of the brand that would one day choose her as its anniversary face, is the kind of thing that almost never happens cleanly in sport. The arc usually breaks somewhere. The kid quits, the body fails, the talent doesn't translate. The brand picks someone else. The fact that this one held, that the line from a small girl in a clinic to the centerpiece of a 50th anniversary campaign actually completed itself, is, on its own terms, remarkable. It is the kind of detail you would dismiss as fiction in a screenplay, which is exactly the story the campaign is telling. The My Milo Story television commercial pairs Eala with Obiena, two individual sport athletes, both competing at the world level, both Filipinos. That pairing is itself a signal. Filipino brands historically lean into team sports, basketball, volleyball, the safe domestic bet. Milo chose two athletes who compete alone, on global stages against opponents from countries with 30 times the budget. That is a philosophical bet, not a demographic one. And then in the same year that bet was made, the receipts began arriving in real time. On the 17th of June, Eala beat Donna Vekic 7-5, 6-4 in the first round of the Berlin Open. 24 hours later, on the 18th, she beat the world number 2, Elena Rybakina, by the same score, 7-5, 6-4, against a player who was a Wimbledon champion. On grass, the surface Eala has historically been least comfortable on. And today, as this script is being recorded, she is preparing to face the 6th seed, Elina Svitolina, in the quarterfinal. The brand's faith, signed in February, is being audited by the WTA Tour in June. And the audit is going well, and the validation is not only commercial. Last year, the ABS-CBN journalist Dion Castillejo produced a documentary titled Alex Eala, Born for Center Court. It aired on the ABS-CBN YouTube channel, and it remains there now. The documentary's title is the documentary's title. Not a quote, not an utterance, not a sentence anyone in the tennis world has spoken into a microphone. But here is what is verified. Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 1, the reigning queen of the women's tour, sat down for that documentary. She gave her time. She spoke about Eala, about her maturity on court, about her mental tenacity, about the dedication she has observed in practice. The world number 1 did not have to do that. There is no ranked player on tour who is required to participate in a documentary about a player outside the top 30. Sabalenka chose to, and that choice, not any single sentence she spoke, is the headline. Two completely separate institutions, a 50-year-old national brand and the highest-ranked woman in tennis, reached the same conclusion in the same calendar year. One signed a contract, the other booked a flight to a film set. Both said, in the only language their industries speak, that this one is worth the time. And underneath all of it, the trajectory the marketing team saw in February is now visible on the leaderboard. Career high ranking of number 143 in mid-2024. Career high of number 29 on the 16th of March, 2026. Currently number 35 with a top 2 scalp on grass, 24 wins and 15 losses on the year, $786,855 in prize money. The numbers are not a top 10 resume yet, but the numbers are moving in exactly the direction Milo's marketing team bet they would, and they are moving faster than the contract assumed, which brings us back to Lawrence Lorico and to what he actually said on the day the deal was announced. Quote, Milo has always been more than just the Filipino kid's favorite breakfast drink. It's been a companion in the journey of every Filipino champion. When we started discussing the campaign with Alex, she was immediately on board. She understands that her own Milo story can inspire others to start from grassroots to greatness. End quote. Read that again, because there are two words in it that matter more than the rest. Grassroots. Greatness. Lorico is not selling a product in that sentence. He is naming the architecture his brand has built for 50 years. The sports clinics, the marathon legs, the champ runs, and he is naming Eala as the proof that the architecture works. The choice of Obiena as co-ambassador reinforces the thesis. The pole vaulter who took bronze at the World Championships and silver in Paris. The tennis player who took down the world number 2 on grass. 2 athletes, 2 disciplines, 1 bet. The bet is that Filipino excellence on the world stage does not require a team to validate it. It requires a court, a runway, a clinic, and a child who grew up drinking the powder, which is why this week matters in a way that exceeds the bracket. Because the Berlin run is not just a quarterfinal, it is a live audit of a generational bet. If Eala beats Svitolina today, she plays a semifinal on Saturday at a WTA 500. Next week, she is entered at Bad Homburg in singles and doubles per Filipino fan trackers. The week after that, Wimbledon, where, according to Yahoo Sports Analysis, she is on the cusp of the top 32 seeding cutoff for the first time in her career. To be seated at Wimbledon is to be told by the All England club in the only language they speak that you are no longer a wild card story, you are a draw consideration, and for a country of roughly 117 million people that has never produced a singles Grand Slam champion, a seeded Filipino at Wimbledon is not a sentence anyone has had to write before. The Milo bet, signed in February, may be ratified in numbers. A TP and WTA ranking points, seeding lines, prize money brackets before the calendar turns to August. That is what a generational compact looks like when it is being honored in real time. The Filipino business press, including BNC Philippines, has separately reported that Eala's press conferences at the Australian Open this year outdrew both Djokovic's and Sabalenka's in viewership. Figures worth treating with appropriate caution, but consistent with everything else the data is telling us. The interest is there. The trajectory is there. The brand was early. The brand is now being proven right. And yet, 10 days ago, none of this looked inevitable. On the 11th of June, in the first round at S. Hertogenbosch, Eala lost to Magda Linette 6-love, 6-2. A bagel set on her first grass court match of the season. The kind of result that, in a career still being built, can quietly become a story about a player who isn't ready for the surface. Eala has not, in the research window, given a public detailed account of that loss. She did not have to. 6 days later, she walked onto a court in Berlin and beat Donna Vekic. 24 hours after that, she beat the world number 2. The recovery is the response. Less than 10 days from a bagel set to a top 2 scalp on the same surface. That is what the contract was betting on. That is what the documentary was looking at. That is what Filipino fans in their group chats and on their fan pages saw before the algorithms caught up. So what does the green tin actually mean now? It means a small object, 50 years old, sitting in millions of Filipino kitchens, stirred into the milk of a generation that grew up dreaming of becoming something, has found a face that walked its entire path. From a child at a sports clinic to an alumna on the brand's own roster, from a wild card ranked outside the top 150 to a top 30 player taking down the world number 2 on grass, from a documentary the world number 1 agreed to participate in, to a launch event where the marketing chief of a 50-year-old national institution put his name on the bet. She represents the moment a Filipino childhood object looked up from the kitchen counter and found, for the first time in 50 years, a champion who had walked the full length of the architecture it built and who is still walking it on grass against the world's best while we watch. The quarterfinal against Svitolina is later today. If you are reading this in the Philippines, you will know the result before the West Coast wakes up. If you are watching from anywhere else in the world, watch the Berlin Open draw. Watch the Bad Homburg entry list. Next week, watch the Wimbledon seeding cutoff. And if you are a Filipino fan reading this, you saw it first. You were stirring the powder into your milk long before the rest